So we're going to do the trig ratios, and one of the things that's kind of important to do before we start the trig ratios is to know what the side length is. And so we've got to decide which type of Pythagorean theorem are we going to use to be able to figure out the length of PQ. Well, since this side and this side are not perpendicular to each other, then we end up subtracting the squares. And so when you put that into the calculator, the side length actually is 48. So now we have all three side lengths. So just a reminder as to what the SOH is. I hope you like my little joke here. So we've got the SO. That means that it's going to be sine is opposite over hypotenuse. CAH. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. TOA. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. And so depending on which angle that we're talking about, either one of these angles here, then that's how we figure out our opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. And so now we're going to be looking at the angle Q right here. And so from this angle, we got to decide, okay, what is opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse? Well, the first thing that we look at is the hypotenuse. It is always opposite of the 90-degree angle, and it's also the longest side of the right triangle. The next one that we look for is the adjacent. Since we have this angle and this side is creating the angle, which is the hypotenuse, the other side that creates angle Q is the adjacent. So the adjacent and the hypotenuse always creates the angle. And then we're left with the opposite right here. So now let's look at what sine Q is. Well, it's opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. So that means that it's 14 over 50. But we have to reduce it in simplest form, which ends up being 7 over 25. Next is the cosine, CAH, adjacent over hypotenuse, A over H. So our trig ratio is going to be 48 over 50, which reduces to 24 over 25. Next, we have tangent Q, TOA, opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent. So our trig ratio is going to be 14 over 48, which reduces down to 7 over 24. Okay, so now the next one is figuring out sine R, cosine R, and tangent R. So now our angle is not Q anymore, but it's going to be angle R. So here is our hypotenuse, that stays the same. And just remember that the angle is created with the sides of the hypotenuse and the adjacent. So this side is the adjacent. And then we're left with opposite. So now let's look at what sine R is, which is opposite over hypotenuse, O over H. So it's 48 over 50, which reduces down to 24 over 25. And then we have cosine R, so it's adjacent over hypotenuse, A over H, 14 over 50, which reduces down to 7 over 25. And then we have tangent R, which is opposite over adjacent, O over A, so this is 48 over 14, which reduces down to 24 over 7. SOH CAH TOA. It's a good acronym to try to remember, even if it takes to show this to you to help you to remember.